how to create object? There's a concept known as like class name space
Class name, reference name is equals to new class name.
new class name,
Mm.
and we have open and close parenthesis, right?
Yeah,
So actually this particular thing, it's known as a constructor.
constructor. Yes.
Even though we are writing the class name, but it is a constructor. Okay, so
Mm.
it has a property that its name must be same as class name. That's the reason we have written the class name, because you didn't know about the constructor, right?
Mm.
So now what I'm saying, that class name object equals to new, it's a constructor. So this constructor is doing what? While creating the object, it is taking part, right?
Mm.
So what is the definition of constructor? You can, constructor takes part
Take
in
well an object
object
create.
creation and initializes variable, and use it to
Okay.
initialize the variable.
Variable.
Means if you want to give any value in a variable, we can give those values to the variables inside the constructor. This is the first thing. Okay, so what is the definition?
Okay.
It's simple that if you want to create like object, then we use a constructor. So without a constructor we can't create an object, right? And this constructor takes
Yeah.
part in initializing the variables. Now
Variables.
what is the next thing you can say? We have like properties of a constructor. So the first property is nothing but its name
Should be same as class
should
name.
be same as
Class name.
class, because it's a different phenomena, like different feature of this thing. And whenever you see open and close parenthesis, it's nothing but for methods we have this open and close parenthesis, right?
Mm.
And every method has two properties. What are the two properties?
Return type and parameter.
Right. So this return type and parameters are present for a method. Whereas
Mm.
for a constructor you have only the parameterized. Means you
Okay.
cannot have that first property known as return type. Like constructor cannot return any value. So
Okay.
for a constructor, what are the properties? It has only one property, that is parameters.
Parameter.
So one time you can say without parameter and second time you can say with parameter.
With
Right?
parameter.
So what is you can say? Constructor
Constructor only
cannot
parameter.
have a return type, not even void. So if you don't have any return type, can you return a value? No, right?
No.
And what is the next thing you can say? How the constructor gets executed actually. For a method, if you see, if I don't call, like for class person, I have a method known as eat. If you don't call it by using Rahul object, it won't get executed, right?
Mm, yeah.
So here,
Because
without calling the method, it can't get executed, but constructor cannot be called by the programmer. You can't call it from by using the object. Constructor gets executed automatically. Gets executed automatically.
new constructor అని రాసినప్పుడు అది calling కింద రాదా?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It gets executed automatically when the object is created.
Okay.
So when this new constructor is written, after this statement, the constructor gets executed. So you don't have to call it externally. So this is the
Okay.
calling of a constructor.
Mm-hmm.
So in this step, after this step, constructor gets executed. And the constructors are classified into two types. So as we said, only one parameter is there. You can say without arguments means zero constructor.
Parameter.
So in one particular constructor, you can say without parameters we are taking, and in other we are taking the parameters, right?
Mm.
So it gets executed when the object is created, right? You can
Yeah.
also say that once per object, that is once per object creation. So if you create 10 objects, it, the
10
constructor
constructors.
gets executed 10 times. Okay?
Mm.
So if you just want to execute a constructor, you need to create an object. You cannot call it externally. That's the most important point.
Mm.
And now we have a particular example, like class student is there. Int id and float percentage. What's the particular things are the variables, and I want to use a constructor to initialize these variables. So how to write a constructor? First properties.
Student is the same as the class name.
So S also must be capital because it's a case sensitive thing. Now you can give the values like 1023 and percentage equals to some F. The suffix must be F because for a float value in Java, the suffix must be given as F. Okay, and now we have one more thing known as displaying the value, like void show. So select star from, yeah, system dot out dot println. What you can say, id equals to plus id, right?
Mm.
And percentage equals to, so what you have to do now, I'm writing a zero constructor, right?
Yeah.
So in this scenario, public
కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ యూజ్ చేయడం వల్ల
in
యూజ్
class.
ఏముంటుంది?
Okay, so how to execute this thing? We have to create an object for the student class. So student Rahul equals to new student Rahul dot student. Is it possible?
Yes. No, no, we should not call constructor.
So we can't write like this, right? Rahul dot student,
Yeah. Yes. We
because
need to write
constructor cannot be
instruction.
called
Cannot be called.
externally. It gets executed automatically after this step.
Yes.
After this step, it gets executed automatically. So next, Rahul dot show is a method. Show must be called.
Mm.
So I'm calling a show. So zero constructor
Dot job. Java 9.
zero constructor dot java. zero constructor. So ID is 1023 and percentage 75.4, right? So this is an example of zero constructor. Like if you want to initialize the variables, we can initialize by using a zero argument constructor. Okay. Now, if you already have the zero argument constructor, then what is the necessity of parameterized constructor? Okay. So here,
Runtime.
suppose I'm creating one more object. Just call this thing as object. Yeah. I'll just explain this program again. See, first a class is there. In this class we have variables. In these variables we can give the value directly. But consider a scenario where I want to initialize the value when object is created. So for that scenario, I'm writing a constructor. So the values will be taken automatically when the object is created. And here you can see that ID I have given 1023 and percentage 75.4. We don't require only the constructor. We can directly use a method. Inside the method also we can give the values. But on a scenario where we have to call the method, then only the input will be taken, because methods must be called. But I want a concept where this particular values will be given when only object is created. So here if you see new student, if it is generated or getting created, then the value is getting assigned. Okay. So next I'm just displaying the values in the show. If you want, you can write this displaying inside the student also. But a single task I'm performing in everything. You have to understand that Java, you can't do all the tasks in a single method or a constructor. We can write, you'll get the output, but it's not according to the standards. So you have to understand that the standards must be followed to like write a program. Okay. So that standard is nothing but a method can perform a task. In the same way in a constructor, I'm doing only one task. Okay.
Initializing.
Initializing the variables. Now here we have to call this method show, but we can't call the particular student. Student will get executed after this particular step or instruction. So that's the program. Fagnik understood. So next, if I'm creating one more student,
String up. Class student.
so here if I'm saying Kiran.show,
Default values.
so when you compile this thing, so both the constructors having the same value. So what's the problem in this zero argument? If you are initializing the values for all the objects, same values will be given. Like if I'm creating 100 students also, that
The same
all
value.
the students ID will be 1023. So to overcome this, if you want to have different values for different students, Then we can go for parameterized constructor. Like see here, index comma float y. I'm giving the parameter x value is stored in id, y value is stored in percentage, right? So next, after this, I have to pass the values. For a parameterized method, we transfer the values from the main block, right?
Yeah.
So here also the same thing is done. If you just compile the program without passing any values, it will give an error saying that actually required are int comma float, right?
Yeah. No
But
argument.
found no arguments because you are not passing any arguments.
Mm.
So this particular parenthesis must have the values.
Parameter. Yeah.
Those are nothing but the calling of a constructor, right? So at this step we have to pass the values.
Okay.
So we are passing the values means 1023, then some particular percentage. So here we save that particular program, and if you compile again and run this thing, so ID is 1023 and percentage is different.
Okay.
We are getting different values for two objects, right?
Yeah.
Next. So what's the difference between parameterized and zero argument? Zero argument, whatever the values you are giving will be same for all the particular objects. Whereas if you are giving different, if you want to give different values for different objects, then we have to go for the parameterized constructor. So in this scenario, parameterized is suitable, right?
What will be the default constructor? అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ ఇవ్వకుండా కూడా ప్రోగ్రామ్ రాస్తాం కదా, అప్పుడు డిఫాల్ట్ గా 0 తీసుకుంటుందా?
Yes, that's the default constructor. Like I'll explain that later. But
Okay.
here what we have, zero argument and parameterized. When to use zero argument?
Parameter.
When you want to give same values for all the
Same
objects.
value.
And when you have to give parameterized, when you're using
Then we have different values for the
different values for
different
different
objects.
objects. Okay, so in this thing, any doubts? Anyone? So shall I continue with the next topic?
Yes.
Right. So if you see in the industry, you won't use this X and Y. Like I've used here X, Y, right? We
Yeah.
use the same name as that particular variables. Like here, if I declare, what are instance variables here? What are the instance variable names?
ID
ID
instant
and
Yeah, what is it?
per
ID and
ID and per.
percentage.
percentage, right?
Yeah.
And what is it X and Y?
Reference.
Yeah,
Reference of the parameter.
reference.
Mm.
Just give me a second. So next we have this x and y are the local variables, right?
Yes.
Inside the
And
method.
local variables means inside the method. So what's the scope of local variable? Throughout this method, right?
It can be used only.
Yeah.
Mm.
Here, throughout this method, we can say it as local variables. And this id and percentage are what? Instance variables, right?
Inside.
So the local variable's value is stored inside the instance variable. That's it, right?
Yeah, we can store.
That's what the action is performed actually. Like 1023 is stored in X, 76.45 is stored in Y. Then this X is stored in ID, Y is stored in percentage. Then you can print that ID and percentage, you are getting these particular values, right?
Mm.
Understood?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I just remove these two things, now if I print the output, what will be the output?
Default value.
What are the default values?
0 and 0.0.
0
Yes, 0 and 0.0,
0.
right? So good.
Mm.
So it's a concept which you have to understand that default values will be given if the value is not given. Now I will change this particular x and y to id and percentage. So I'm giving here id and percentage. So what's happening here? This id and percentage are instance or local variables.
Local variables.
Local.
So both are what?
Local as well.
Local variables only, right? Now, so when the scenario is that instance variable and local variable are same, now if I print this particular program, what will be the output?
0 and 0.0.
Right, good. It's nothing but we are not giving any value inside the instance variable, so it will be again 0 and 0.0. Local variable equals to local variable. That's it, right? Both are local variables itself. So value ekkada instance variable lo transfer అవ్వట్లేదు. So what is happening? We have to differentiate in this scenario that this is instance variable, like left side is instance variable and right side is local variable, right?
Mm.
Because previously you have seen that x is the local variable which storing the value inside the instance variable, right?
Just a
Now
minute, sir. Left side is instance variable, right side is local variables. Is that you are saying?
yes, ఇంతకుముందు చూసాం కదా int x float y అది local variables. id equals to x అన్నప్పుడు రైట్ సైడ్ లోకల్ వేరియబుల్ అండ్ లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్ వేరియబులే కదా.
Okay, okay. Understand.
మరి ఎందుకు స్టోర్ అవ్వట్లేదు ఐడి ఉన్న పర్సెంటేజ్ లో 0.00 అని ఎందుకు ప్రింట్ అండి?
ఇప్పుడు ఈ మీకు కన్ఫ్యూజన్ అవ్వట్లేదా ఏది లోకల్ ఏది ఇన్స్టెన్స్ అని? రెండు సేమ్ ఉన్నప్పుడు
ఓకే.
మనమే కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అయినప్పుడు మషిన్కి ఎలా తెలుస్తుంది? సో దీన్ని డిఫరెన్షియేట్ చేయాలి కదా, ఈ లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్ అండ్ రైట్ సైడ్ లోకల్ అని.
ఓకే.
ఫర్ దట్ we need an what is that instance depends on?
లోకల్ వేరియబుల్.
Instance depends on what? I'm not asking about this concept, I'm asking about instance variable.
Depends upon
Instant will depends on default
object.
variables.
Object,
Class.
object
Okay.
and static
Mm.
depends on class name, right? So if I want to
Yeah.
differentiate this, I need an object now. So what's the object we have? Rahul, right?
Yes.
Can I use this Rahul here? Because already we have created the object. Rahul.id and Rahul.percentage.
How can we create in class? క్లాస్ కి మెమరీ ఉండదు కదా.
Yeah, but I'm asking about object Rahul. Can I use that Rahul here or not?
No.
It's main నుంచి మనం క్లాస్ లో యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాం.
Yeah, if I use it here, error వస్తుందా అవుట్పుట్ వస్తుందా చెప్పండి చాలు.
వస్తుంది అనుకో.
అవుట్పుట్ వస్తుంది సార్.
Okay. Now tell me what is the scope of local? లోకల్ అంటే స్కోప్
ఇట్స్
ఏంటంటే
జస్ట్ ఓన్లీ మెథడ్ వర్కే ఉంటుంది, దాని తర్వాత ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవ్వదు.
యూజ్ చేయలేము. ఇప్పుడు ఈ రాహుల్ అనేది లోకలా కాదా? ఈ మెయిన్ మెథడ్ వరకే యూజ్ అవుతుంది కదా, మెయిన్ మెథడ్ బయట యూజ్ చేయొచ్చా?
చేయలేము.
మనం చేయలేనప్పుడు ఇక్కడ రాహుల్ ఎలా యూజ్ అవుతుంది?
అదే ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది.
అదే అడిగాను కదా మా ఇందాక. సో దట్స్ ద థింగ్.
నేను అదే
స్కోప్ ఏంటిది? మళ్ళీ అదే మీరు కన్ఫ్యూజన్ లో ఉన్నారు, ఇన్ డైలమా దట్ వస్తుందా రాదా అనేసి. సో
రాదు పక్క, ఎందుకంటే క్లాస్ లో డిక్లేర్ చేయలేము.
yes, that is declared inside that particular method and is limited to that method. Now how to solve this thing? There is a problem. To solve this thing we have a keyword. Ain't a keyword ante this. There is a keyword known as this. What is that this means? When you are creating an object, like I have created an object known as student Rahul equals to
Rahul.
new
New
student,
student.
right? So Rahul dot id. Sorry,
ID.
so you can say here Rahul. So Rahul is a memory block, right?
Yeah.
Which is represented by here Rahul, and here we have this thing known as Rahul. So along with this, what JVM will do, it will have this as a keyword, which you can say this is nothing but a reference.
Starting with the current object.
This is a reference. What reference do? A reference to point a particular object, right? So
Point
now
the current object.
Rahul will be there. So this equals to Rahul will be given by JVM. So instead of Rahul, what you can use? This.
This.
Right? So here instead of Rahul, what I can use? This. Dot
This.
ID. This dot percentage. Right? If I compile this thing now, ID percentage and IDN percentage, right? So what is this? This is a reference which points to the class object, current class object. Okay, so e object create చేసినప్పుడు e object ని పాయింట్ చేస్తుంది, నెక్స్ట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ని పాయింట్ చేస్తుంది, one after the other. Understood? So next, what is this keyword again?
It refers to the object.
Yes, object of that particular class, right?
Particular class, yeah.
And next we have a particular concept known as super keyword also. Okay, so what is super keyword?
Super keyword, which
or we have one more concept,
class,
yeah, where you have one more concept known as constructor overloading. What is overloading?
Overloading, which use same function name with different parameters types, different parameters types, different parameter sizes and all.
Right, now I'm saying constructor overloading. So what do you mean that the constructor name will be same, right? Because it's the same name as class
But
name.
the parameters will
Different.
Yeah, arguments will be different.
Then you can say it's a constructor overloading.
Yes.
So in a scenario where I have like two constructors, I just want to declare and display them directly. So instead of assigning to the instance variables and then displaying, I'm just using a constructor to directly display the values. So what I have done, do I need to call the method now? No, right?
No.
I've just written a parameterized constructor. Two parameters or one parameter?
No, two parameters.
What are the types?
Int and float.
Int and float.
Float.
So I just execute this program. What will happen? I'll get both the values,
Yes.
ID and percentage. right? So it's getting
Yes.
executed automatically even though we have not called any particular method, right? So I'm writing one more constructor here. So what is the one more constructor you can see? Student string address.
Mm.
So what's happening here? I want to display the address. So what you can say?
Print address.
Address equal to plus address. Now, will this student address constructor will get executed in this scenario if I compile and
No.
run? Why?
No. Because we didn't declare anywhere as a student. One ఒక parameter తో constructor ఎక్కడ initialize చేయలేదు కదా.
Right. Means when you're writing an object, when you're creating an object, when you're passing two parameterized, it will get executed like two parameters only. So if you want to execute the single parameterized, you have to call that particular constructor, or
Constructor.
you can say you have to create an object.
We have to create a new object. Yeah.
Like here, if I compile, what's it saying?
ID and percentages are printing two parameters constructor.
Right. What about that string address?
We didn't call that.
Right. So it won't get executed, right? So if you want to
Mm.
execute, you have to create one more object like Rahul Kiran equals to new student. Okay.
Mm.
So what is it? You can say some particular place or address. You can say, right? So I'm
Mm.
saying Delhi. Now if I save and compile,
Mm.
so we are executing these things, right?
Yes.
We are getting the output. But if you say for Rahul, the idea in percentage is there, but is there any
Mm.
address for Rahul? Because it's not the Rahul object, right? It's Kiran object.
That is Kiran address. Yeah.
Means separate my objects are getting created for a single student. Is it correct? No, right?
Mm. No.
Means here the memory is also getting wasted. Like multiple times you are creating the object. Suppose if I have five parameters constructor, you can't create the five objects for a single class. Then a lot of space
Yeah.
and memory will get wasted, right? So in order to overcome this,
Yes.
we can use this keyword, which can call a constructor. Like here, in the particular two parameterized, I'll say this. In the parenthesis, I'll give Delhi. So what will happen? It's a single parameter, right? And this indicates what?
Object.
Of a class, right? So
Mm.
now if I compile and run this thing, so you got this address first, right? Why address is getting executed first? First, new
This
student.
object is different.
Yeah, new student and angane, it will go to ID and percentage, and in the next step it will go for the single parameterized. Single parameterized means here. So it will execute it.
ఒకవేళ ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళీ ఇంకో ఆబ్జెక్ట్ కి అడ్రస్ అవసరం లేదు అనుకుంటే
You don't have to call this then. This
అంటే
is
ఇప్పుడు
not
టూ
required then.
ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తున్నాం ఇప్పుడు టూ ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తున్నాం రాహుల్ కిరణ్
That is for
రాహుల్ కి అడ్రస్ కా యా
scenario like memory is getting wasted, right? If you don't want the Rahul address, what you have to do, just remove this. Then it won't execute that address, right? Or else, if you want to see, the constructor calling can be done differently. Like if I call Delhi, what will happen? Single parameterized
ఇట్
will
విల్
get
గో టు
executed.
స్టూడెంట్
In this
యా
single parameter, again you can use this. and refer that particular value.
Okay.
So either way you can create, right?
Okay. Mm.
So if I compile and execute, what will happen? You're getting that ID and percentage first, then the address, right?
Okay. Mm, yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Next, this is the two parameterized constructor, single parameterized constructor, that is constructor overloading.
Overloading.
You can load a constructor. Okay.
Mm.
Next, we have a keyword known as super. So what the super keyword can do?
It takes the variables or methods from different class. So,
Like here, a class is there. I'm saying parent.
mm.
A parent class is there. A child class is there.
Mm.
A parent will have age. In the same way, a child will also have an age.
Mm.
So some age. Now I want to display those ages, like void show system dot out dot println. What you can say, age, parent age equals to plus age. In the same manner, I want to display the child age.
Child age.
So I'll just say child age equals
Child age
to
equals
age,
to.
right? Now I'll write a class known as super demo
Mm.
public static
Public static coordinate
void main
string out.
string args. What you can say,
Child. Child
because at the time of inheritance we need inheritance here because child extends parent, right?
extends the parents. Yeah.
It's mandatory to have an inheritance relationship between parent and child. Then we can
Mm.
say we can create object only for that particular child, like child
Child.
Shiva equals to new child.
Mm.
So Shiva dot show.
Show.
Now tell me here, if I
Super
execute
dot
this thing,
parent. You have to use.
what will be the output?
Error.
Error.
Only child. Child మాత్రమే వస్తుంది error ఉంటుంది అనుకుంటా.
There is no
Child.
error here, right?
Okay.
So what will
Only
be the output?
child మాత్రమే వస్తుంది.
What will be the
Default
output? I want the values. What are the two values it's getting displayed? Like parent age,
26. 26.
child age. What are the two things? 26 and 26,
26.
right? So
Yeah.
here you can say why it's getting executed like that. Scope.
Because
This
parent.
particular variable will be throughout that particular class.
Yeah.
So here child class and super class are having the same particular name.
Yeah.
If you want to differentiate, how to differentiate?
Super dot
But
age.
మీరు క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ లీక్ చేస్తున్నా ఇట్లయితే కష్టం.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
ఎందుకంటే మీకు ఐడియా ఉంది బట్ అదర్ స్టూడెంట్స్ వోంట్ బి హ్యావింగ్ ద ఐడియా, రైట్?
Okay. Okay. I'll be quiet.
సో ఇఫ్ ఐ టెల్ ఆఫ్టర్ దట్ యూఆర్ టెలింగ్ ఇట్స్ గుడ్, బట్ నేను చెప్పకముందు చెప్తే
Okay.
కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవుతారు.
Okay. Okay. I won't.
సో పేరెంట్ మహేష్ ఈక్వల్స్ న్యూ పేరెంట్. లైక్ ఇక్కడ ఏమవుతుంది, నాకు సూపర్ క్లాస్ అనేది పేరెంట్, పేరెంట్లో ఏజ్ ఉంది. దిస్ ఇస్ ఇన్స్టాన్స్ వేరియబుల్. ఇన్స్టాన్స్ వేరియబుల్ డిపెండ్స్ ఆన్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. నేను ఒక ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేశాను సూపర్ క్లాస్కి, ఆ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ కాల్ చేస్తున్నాను మహేష్ డాట్ ఏజ్. సేవ్ దిస్ థింగ్.
An object. Class లో define చేశారు object.
Yes, we can do it anywhere. Like scanner class, you can create the object means you can create the object of any class anywhere. This Mahesh, if
Okay.
you want, you can have it outside the method also. Like here, Declaration or creation can be anything, anywhere. Like statement cannot be written outside the method. If I write this thing, if I
Okay.
save, compile and run also, it's fine. So
Okay.
parent age is 54 and child age is 26, right? Now, in this particular program, how many objects are getting executed or created? Mahesh, one superclass object. And at the time of inheritance, we know that when child class object is getting created, automatically superclass object gets generated. So here what's happening? Shiva, along with that Shiva, superclass object is getting generated. So totally three projects, Mahesh, Shiva and one superclass object again. So the memory is getting wasted, right? Already we have a
Yeah.
particular superclass object. Again I am creating the superclass object. But this superclass object which is present inside Shiva is not represented by anyone. Like who is representing that? That we have to understand. Suppose if I'm having a memory and in that memory if I create this child Shiva equals to new child, so what's happening here? A child memory is getting created and in this child, what is the child object name? It's nothing but Shiva, right? In this child a super object is also there and that super object is nothing but superclass object is nothing but some parent. So already there is an object known as parent and this Shiva is nothing but child object. So for child, Shiva is pointing it. For the parent, no one is there to point, right? For that reason, what the JVM will do, it will just use a keyword known as super equals to parent. Means whatever that parent is there, that object is represented by super. So what's happening here? You can represent this particular object, right? So in this scenario, to save the memory again, I won't create an object of parent. I'll just create an object of, or already object is created. That object I'm representing by using super. So super is a keyword which is indicated to the superclass object. If I compile this now and run it, parent age is 54 and child age is 26, right? So understood. Superclass object ని రిప్రజెంట్ చేసేది super keyword అంతే, nothing else. Any doubts? Right. So the super keyword can also be used for the constructors actually. So we'll see that tomorrow. Until this thing, just try to write an examples. Execute these programs and have a different example for other scenarios. Okay?
Okay.
And you make your program as complex. How to make the program complex? Include lot of methods, variables, actions, different classes. Make it
Okay.
basics చెప్తున్నాను అంతే. Basics like it will be simple. So you have to use that basics repeated number of times, then it will be easier for you. Okay, fine then. So tomorrow again at same time we can continue. I
Okay.
just want the programs who have not done that, so try to send them. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.